but there are always disruptions in all of our marketplaces, whether it's social media, AI, whether it's websites, and so on. And I think your smart leaders, your smart business owners, and entrepreneurs are trying to stay in front of those.
Right.
And if you're not staying in front of those, unfortunately, you are going to fall behind.
Hmm.
And regardless of your opinion or your belief on it, I have some staff members that don't necessarily believe in AI, but you've got to put that aside.
Hmm.
We live in 2026, and unfortunately, if we don't keep up with what's going on in our marketplace, and more importantly, across the globe, we are going to fall behind as
Yep.
business owners, as entrepreneurs, as leaders.
Hmm.
And it goes back to asking those same questions, right?
Welcome to the Your Message Received podcast. And now, taking your message to the finish line, your host, John Duffin.
Hey folks, John Duffin here with Duffin Media. Welcome back to another episode of Your Message Received. Your Message Received is the home, the place, the platform to help you find your most true, most authentic business voice. Get what you want, find what you need, improve your results, make billions of dollars in real estate. That's what today's guest is currently working on with a Mambo team to help him. And folks, if you want to feel as if maybe there's a little bit more urgency or maybe lose a little bit of that fear in terms of getting going, we got a good one today. We're thrilled that you keep watching, listening, liking, subscribing, all that sort of thing. And one of the reasons is we bring people on that walk the walk. Adam Olsen is one of those people. Adam, who has, to this point, at the ripe old age of 30-ish years old, and I only throw ages around because I saw this post on Instagram, and so, who has literally transformed the real estate market in Texas, which is saying a lot. Adam, welcome to the show, man. It's nice to have you.
Hey, John, we're so excited to be here with you and share to all of your guests how we've been able to grow and be somewhat successful. Still got a lot of ground to cover, but really excited to be with you and share a little bit of ideas and thoughts from our neck of the woods.
I love it. I love it. So the fact of the matter, folks, you're going to see in terms of credentials, I mean, numbers matter. I love the story that goes with them, but honestly, like the numbers matter. Looking at over 5,000 transactions, top 1% of realtors nationwide. This is luxury properties. This is commercial. This is North Houston to Costa Rica and everywhere in between, we'll say, in terms of global and impact. This guy's been featured in a ton of publications, whether it's Real Producers Magazine. And by the way, we have one of those in the Philadelphia region as well, too. That's very, very cool. And pursuing results amongst a lot of other publications as well, too. And by the way, I should have said not Costa Rica, although that's true. I should have said South Africa because that might be a further launch point. Adam, walk me back a step because I can't imagine you began this process by having $1 billion plus worth of people, process, systems, or performance.
Yeah.
What got you interested? Which is such a boring question, but I'll ask it anyway. That got you interested?
So honestly, whenever I graduated high school, I really didn't know what I wanted to do. And I grew up in the show cattle industry.
Mm-hmm.
Unfortunately, lost my father at a very young age at 4.5 in a car accident. And so I grew up with a mother that never really utilized her college degree. And unless I was going to be an attorney or a doctor or someone that required a little bit of a higher level education, I really didn't want to go. schooling was not my forte, and not what I envisioned myself doing. And so I looked into auctioneering, pilot's license, and real estate. Ultimately, started working on all three at the same time, and got into the real estate industry. It actually took me 7 months to sell my first property. You can imagine being 18, newly licensed, right after my 18th birthday. I actually started taking classes at 17, and again, it took me 7 months to close my first property. And then after that, it just kind of clicked and rolled, and started doing two a month, three a month, and then very quickly, started a team. And then 12 years later, here we are. So, still not perfect. There's always room for improvement and changes that we're consistently making to the business, especially with the evolution, right, of social media,
Sure.
podcast, and then more importantly, in today's day and age, AI.
Right.
So there's always moving parts, and I think one of the key aspects to business is always being able to pivot with the new changes in the industry, the new disruptions, right, in the marketplace. And I think that's where potentially a lot of businesses fail, is they're not willing to adapt or incorporate new technology to help them move the needle forward, or speed up the process, or even furthermore make it a better experience, right, for your clients. And that's one thing that we're always trying to do at both of our companies, Adam Olsen Team and the Commercial Professionals, is consistently trying to improve not only for our agents and staff, but more importantly, our client experience, to ultimately do more transactions.
Do you mind if I ask, before we go into the nuts and bolts of that, a couple of detailed questions? What do you remember about your dad?
Unfortunately, not a whole lot, right?
Yeah,
At
you
four
were
and a
4 or
half,
5. I mean, and
it's
so you were a
yeah.
little kid. Do you remember anything, is a better way for me to ask?
Oh yes. So, I remember riding around on the lawnmower with him, and he had a '56 Chevy Bel Air, which ultimately we sold whenever I was in high school. But I had the pleasure to buy it out, or buy it back. Sorry, roughly about 2 years after getting into real estate. So it's sitting in my garage now. And he brought that out of a cornfield, completely redid it, all original chrome, and mostly original parts. Um, Very, very beautiful car, and a great way to remember him. But more importantly, just remember doing stuff around the house, riding on the lawnmower with him, and then occasionally some Yamaha uh, equipment. He actually owned a local Yamaha dealership
Okay.
in the town where I live. He sold that uh, in the late '90s, and unfortunately, he passed in 2001. So, and in a way, the real estate side of it really comes from him. So he sold the Yamaha dealership in the late '90s, and he started building a storage facility in a small town called Cleveland, Texas.
Okay.
And unfortunately, he passed in a single car accident on his way
Mm.
to that facility. My mom finished that facility. We sold it. She built another self storage facility, roughly 300 to 400 units in Huntsville. We sold it, and then we built another one in Conroe and sold it. So indirectly, I guess my family was a little bit involved in real estate, but definitely a first career real estate broker or agent. So I guess my family was more in the development side, but
Right.
but
Right.
those
And
were kind of the
liquidation
fond
of assets,
memories,
or growth of assets.
right?
I'm curious because I saw a photo. I just want to make sure I saw it right. I'm not going to flash the photo, but is the Chevy, or was the Chevy Bel Air, red and white?
It is red and white
Yeah.
convertible. Yes, beautiful
I
car.
saw the photo. You standing all proud,
Yes.
butted up against it, and I don't know if that's the right choice of words, but I mean, you standing right in front of it, and it was a great photo. And folks, I only bring that up because, first off, you could feel the sense of pride, with you standing in front of that car. And
Yeah.
I'm curious, why did you buy it back? What did it mean to you, for what reason?
It obviously holds a lot of sentimental value,
Mm,
considering my dad, rebuilt basically the entire car,
mhm,
pulled it out of a cornfield as a rusted shell,
mm.
and really my last connection, right, to him, aside from photos and other,
Oh,
small
okay.
items,
Mhm.
and more importantly, being able to purchase that back roughly 2 years, 3 years after getting into the real estate industry and getting into the business and working career
Mm.
of my stage of life is, at a testament, a huge success story in itself, mainly for myself, but uh, just really awesome and special to be able to own it and buy it back. Obviously, I will likely never sell it. And
Mm.
it's a really cool experience just getting to drive it around and knowing, that it's kind of like a family heritage,
Oh,
per se. Um, and still have that connection. So extremely special for me,
I
and
love it.
definitely a highlight of my career.
Yeah, and such a strong, like, my dad, when he was alive, my dad had there was 2 cars that reminded me of that car. One was an old Chevy Impala, and I mean, he
Nice.
had it, it didn't look as revved up as that photo, but I knew it meant a lot to my dad, the
Right.
brand and the whole bit. So it was very cool to watch. And the car that would be the visual show car, we didn't buy it back. Maybe we should have. Was an old red and white Chevy Cadillac, and
Oh, nice. That's awesome.
big old thing.
Those are
And so
tanks.
you know, they're monsters in terms of the
Yes.
size of them back then. But I just, like I said, that sense of keeping the family connection, I think, really matters.
It
Um,
is.
I want to ask you something, right? So you were thinking along 3 lines: auctioneer, based upon the cattle industry, the real estate, which you obviously went with. What was pilot?
Pilot.
Um,
Yes.
did you ever get your pilot's license?
I need to finish it. I've had several people ask me about that, but I need to finish it. I've got all my 40 hours. I did my solo cross
Right.
country, but I never took my written or
Mhm.
my final exam. So I have everything to qualify. Definitely been, 8 to 9 years since I've been in an airplane, been in the
Mhm.
real estate industry 12 years now. And uh, I need to finish it,
Mhm.
need to complete it, but I haven't yet. So I got so busy and distracted in the
Sure.
real estate industry and kind of never looked back, unfortunately. But I need to go back and finish that, and then also my auctioneering license for the state of Texas. So I've got all my hours there, I just
Mhm.
haven't completed
But
in a
maybe that's a good
sense.
thing. Meaning, in terms of, especially with the auctioneer thing too, that considering you start the industry at 18 years old, in real estate, and I would imagine at any age, let alone when you're really young, coming out of high school, that if you're all over the place with, well, maybe I'll be a pilot and maybe I'll be an auctioneer. And listen, a lot older than 18, when I left my corporate career, I was kind of all over the place. So I admire the fact that you made a selection and ran with it. My
Yes,
right? My first question I'll
and went
ask.
all in,
Well, that's
in a
the word,
sense.
and that's a big
Yep,
deal in terms of many people that I've interviewed, or the people that I'm lucky enough to be around in my life. It's when they go all in.
hundred
Um,
percent.
the age is not quite as critical, but I'll ask you something. You said, if I heard you correctly, that it was 7 months before you, and I'm not going to, harp on that. I mean, but 7 months before you closed your first real estate deal. When you started, and 12 years ago was long enough, maybe you don't remember, but I would imagine you may. Um, being taken seriously as a high school grad, and also a guy who looks young now. So I'm going to ask you, for people that are making big decisions that you had to work for whatever reason they're buying or selling some sort of a property. What was it like starting out, and how were you able to navigate or elevate yourself to a point where you were taken seriously?
It's a great question, John, and it is difficult. It's a difficult balance. I think, going back to what we were talking about earlier, number one is going all in.
Hmm.
It was a situation where those 7 months, even though I may not have had buyers or sellers or individuals actively looking to buy or
Yeah.
sell, I was at the office every day of the week. You know,
Mhm.
I would go there in the morning. Not sure the exact time, back in the day, but I would assume that it would have been earlier, and would stay. I'd walk around. I'd ask the other agents in the office if they needed any help on any transactions, if there was, an opportunity for me to shadow or learn alongside them, and asked if they needed any help, right, with leases or
Mhm.
really anything in that
Mhm.
sense. And I think being present is huge in any industry, any business that you're starting, especially from the ground up and at the start. Being present is a huge factor. More importantly, putting the work forward. I think
Mhm.
there's a lot of times, that agents come to us now with the amount of business that we have that want to join and be successful, and ultimately they talk the talk but they don't walk the walk, meaning
Mhm.
they don't show up. They're waking up at 9 a.m.
Mhm.
They're hammering those phone calls for an hour a day, that's it. And you're either interested or you're not. You're
Mhm.
either uh, wanting to grow your business and take it to the next level, or you're not. And I'm a firm believer, if you're not going to get there if you don't put the work in. um, you know, Same thing. If I've got no business today, and I need to drum up business for the weekend or appointments, then I need to be hammering those phone calls. In our
Mhm.
business, you know, there are four or five things that make you money. Number one, you're on the phone calling, texting, or
Mhm.
emailing a potential buyer or seller. Number two, you're setting them up on a save search or searching, for those individuals. And then last but not least, you're in the car headed to go meet that individual.
Okay.
So if you're not doing one of those three items,
Mhm.
you're not necessarily going to make money in this industry. And those are the basic terms. Obviously, you have the marketing aspect, you have, running Facebook and social media and
Right.
Google ads. But if you're not willing to put in the work that others aren't willing to do, and in our industry, it's making phone calls, sending emails, and following up with people. I always tell our agents the money's in the follow up, not the lead. Right? I
Mhm.
can give you 10 leads, but if you're not going to follow up with them, provide value, and go the extra length to convert that individual into a buyer or seller, it doesn't matter. I can give you 100 leads and you're still not going to close any transactions. And so the money is always in the basics. In our industry, it's in the follow up. But obviously, in other industries, it depends. So I think that a lot of people uh, pay attention to the shiny objects or the
Mhm.
new tool, rather than just focusing on the basics and getting the foundation there. Once you have the foundation, we can build the systems, we can add staff members in play to really take it to the next level, but without the foundation, nothing works.
S- So I would ask you, if you recall, because it's in essence a tale of two cities or more, so to speak. You at 18, and I wanted to ask you, did you have a safety net during those 7 months? And I mean literally or figuratively, when you made the call and you decided to go all in, did you have literally a safety net to keep you there? And if so, what was the safety net? And if not,
Yeah.
what the heck did you do?
I did, and I probably had an advantage, right, to someone that's had a long career,
Mhm.
um, that is looking to make a transition. But we can talk about that too. At 18, right, most of us are living at home,
Right.
so I stayed living at home. It was me
Okay.
and my mom. She had a townhouse with a
Mhm.
separate living area, and I lived there for another 4 or 5 years, to be honest, John.
Yeah.
And so, aside from my personal expenses,
Mhm.
um, everything was provided, right? I had housing, I had internet, I had water and sewer,
Mhm.
and she was paying for those items. So I was very blessed in that regards, with a very supportive family and mother, right, to help me get to that next level. And I think for those that may not be as fortunate or lucky to have that support system, or maybe their spouse have an additional income that allows them to take a step back
Right.
to focus on growing a business, I think it's important that you start working and setting that foundation uh,
Mhm.
today. And what that looks like is we look at your expenses, right, over the next 6 to 12 months, and we see what we can get rid of.
Mhm.
We see what we can cancel, or maybe lower those expenses.
Mhm.
Maybe rather than taking two vehicles, we take one.
Mhm.
Maybe instead of going out to eat 3 days a week, we cut it down to going out to eat one time a week, or
Mhm.
we don't. We make
Mhm.
meals from home, and
Mhm.
we put that money that we're saving, right, into a secondary account that is kind of building savings to be
Mhm.
able to take that leap of faith to start your business, and or reshift your focus, so that we can get you out of that 9 to 5 job, or take your company right to the next
Mhm.
level. So, regardless of your support system, I was very fortunate, but there are ways for those that maybe are not as fortunate
Mhm.
to also get to that next level. You just might have to sacrifice, trips, expenses,
Mhm.
celebrations, etc., to get to that level. And I think that's another key point, that a lot of business owners and entrepreneurs aren't willing to take a step back to
Mhm.
go 4 steps forward.
Right.
And a lot of people miss that, whether it be the next car, the next shiny object, the
Mhm.
next watch, right? Maybe we save that money and reinvest it in marketing, or put it into an account for 6 months, 12 months reserves, to be able to take that next step.
I love it. So you walked the walk, hung out at the office, did what you needed to do, and you closed your first transaction in under a year. If I remember correctly, then you're saying then it went to two, and then it went to more. As you were all right. So the one question in that line is simply, when did you realize that your all in approach paid off?
Um, I think it was probably 4 or 5 years in the business.
Wow. Okay.
We really noticed it. I mean, yes, at roughly the 2 and 3 year mark, we had
Mhm.
brought on, I believe, 2 or 3 agents and had an
Mhm.
assistant, and we were really starting to put the systems in place and bring more individuals on board.
Yep.
In
Mhm.
addition to additional marketing, buy more leads,
Mhm.
ZillowRealtor.com, and things along those lines. But it wasn't until we had multiple employees and several agents, 10, 15, 20 agents,
Mhm.
where I started looking back and saying, wow,
Mhm.
we're really taking off and really doing this. And with that, transactions followed. And then, unfortunately, I think, at a point in my career, um, it got common, right?
Mhm.
And we start to get bored. Things start slipping through the cracks, or we miss items, not necessarily with clients, but mainly on the back end, or
Right.
internally, right, with staff members and other
Mhm.
agents. And so at a point, you graduate to, hey, I'm a worker or doer and
Mhm.
completing these items, and still a worker or doer, but now I have to make sure that we've got the management in place to handle, right, that growth, and the systems in place to, I don't want to say monitor, but ensure that our staff and agents are providing the same level of service to our clients, or the people that are entrusting us with, buying, selling a home, or buying, selling, investing, developing commercial assets, whether they're retail, industrial, uh, small businesses
Mhm.
to large publicly traded offices, um, eh, eh, so that we're delivering that same level of
Mhm.
service. And I think that, that at a point, eh, over an individual's career, if they're really looking to build a lasting business, that same aha moment happens to everyone,
Right.
right? To where you're consistently grinding, trying to build the business, you're putting the pieces to the puzzle into place, but then there's a point where you've got to take a step back and really focus, more on the management side
Yeah. The
of the
leadership side.
business, or it can get lost very
Yeah.
quickly.
You mentioned that there was a little bit of complacency. I've got a dear friend of mine, a monster success, and he's also on the young side. And so has built, and continues to build a nationwide law firm
Oh, that's
and does
incredible.
things very unconventionally and, as it turns out, very successfully. Now he speaks about, and it was just him in the beginning,
Wow.
just him alone in Philadelphia. James Helm is his name, and if he's listening or watching this podcast, way to go, Top Dog Law is the guy. I bring it up because he talks a lot about the shift in what he needs to do in terms of being an effective communicator. I'm
Yes.
asking a similar question to what I asked earlier, but this one faces more inside than outside, which is, as you are building this team and you go to 4 or 5 agents, then you go beyond that, and then the revenue's starting to snowball and compound, your responsibilities become different,
Yes.
right? And so
100%.
how did you know you were ready and to be a leader as opposed to a doer?
I think that um, the the sales and the grind over the years prior have really built us up, right, to almost being an effective communicator. In a sense, there's always room for improvement,
Mhm.
but when you're dealing with people from all different walks of life, background, thought processes, and
Yep.
beliefs, you learn a lot about people, um, when going through those
Mhm.
transactions. And I don't think I was necessarily ready in a sense, but I had to be ready.
Right.
Right? It was a situation where it had to be done. We had to hire, additional agents and
Mhm.
staff members, and whether I was ready or not, I had to learn as we go.
Mhm.
It was a scenario where you have uh, a 19, 20, 21, 22-year old at that time, uh, with individuals, that are working with me and for me that are 30, 40, and 50.
Yep.
And, I never really had an issue with our staff or agents respecting, right, myself or anything along those lines. I think, the hardest respect to earn is from the marketplace. It's from the other agents, and it's
Mhm.
from the individuals that are inquiring at a young age to be able to trust you and utilize you. And I hate to say it in this terms, John, but it's really a fake it until you make it
Sure.
scenario.
I got it.
You have to go in with confidence,
Mhm.
and really build yourself up in order to do so. I mean, I remember back then going into large meetings, or at the time what I thought were large meetings,
Mhm.
and sitting in the truck and really talking to myself and talking myself up before going into those. And sometimes that's needed, some self-reflection, but also internal communication, and be mindful of what you're telling yourself. I think, uh, although it sounds weird, having conversations with yourself, it is, at a forefront, and we all do it. We're all thinking in our head, and whether you think you're really talking to yourself or you're just having thoughts, it is the same concept.
Mhm.
And so half the battle, is believing it, and more importantly, being an effective communicator and being able to have those conversations. And more importantly, to the psychology behind it. It was a situation early on when I would have conversations not with not just with other agents in the business, but
Right.
also staff members, clients, everyone I came in contact with, where if I asked John a question and I didn't get the answer that I wanted, I would ask myself, what could I have said differently? What could I have done differently to get a different outcome? And then furthermore, in our industry too, paying attention to what's happening around you. You're searching for a client in a specific area for a specific type of property, who owns the properties next door, right? Did HEB just buy the corner half a mile up the road? What does that look like? Can we find out any information on it? What are the plans for the development across the street? And really paying attention so that you kind of be this sponge in your marketplace.
Mhm.
If you are in real estate, or regardless of the industry you're in, what price is my competitor selling this same product at? What's the quantity that we can purchase at? How many sales do they have? This social media post got 100 likes and 15 comments.
Mhm.
This other one only got 10 likes and 2 comments. Why? Was it the post? Was it the wording? Was it the structure? Was it the graphic?
Mhm.
And I think when you really start to ask yourself those questions on a daily basis and everything that you do, you really start learning more about yourself, the people you're working with, and more importantly, the business as a whole, to move it to that next level.
Love it. Now, as I'm thinking, and the business is starting to snowball, personnel, business leader, I'm sorry, personnel, staff, clients, I go back to you having an option to do 3 things at 18. So now you got a lot more than 3 things going on at this point. So if I read correctly, if I did anything regarding homework properly here, then I would say you were like your niche expertise going in was more land deals, land sales. Did I get that, or did you learn that knowledge to become big at that?
So we took everything we could get early on,
Yeah,
and just like anybody, and I suggest
sure.
that especially any real estate professional
Mhm,
that's listening in, and depending on your business, same in that aspect, right?
mhm,
Take what you can get, and build the foundation off of it.
mhm,
Um, but we naturally started with home sales, lot sales,
mhm.
and it evolved right into the ranches. I came from the show cattle industry, so I showed
Yeah.
cattle growing up all over the country, and had a lot of knowledge around it. And naturally was curious and wanted to learn as much as possible right on the land side.
Mhm,
Even the development, we do a lot of developments currently for national home builders and developers across the state, anywhere from 100-acre tracts all the way up to a couple thousand-acre master plan
mhm,
communities featuring thousands of home sites. And whether you're selling land to a developer or to a cattle rancher or someone looking for a weekend place, it isn't. There are some very important aspects, especially in the state of Texas, with mineral rights, riparian rights,
mhm.
surface rights, and so on, and how those work and how those transfer right between buyer and seller if they transfer. Um, but naturally, with my background in the show cattle and the connections there, we obviously sell a decent amount of ranches on a yearly basis, and we do a lot of residential developments. Love it or hate it, right? There are those individuals out there that don't like that, because we're changing the landscape of their community. And maybe now they've got a neighborhood next door to a 200-acre ranch, but
Mhm.
unfortunately, it is the way of evolution, and it does happen.
Right.
And my job is to sell the property, not control what someone's trying to do
Mhm,
with their said property. But there are a lot of aspects to it, and I suggest anyone looking right to get into more residential development,
mhm,
land sales tracts, or even selling farm and ranch properties. Definitely, reach out to either an experienced broker like myself that can
mhm,
guide you through that process or help answer any questions, and/or there are multiple classes out there that you could take to learn the
mhm.
aspects. As a buyer, a seller, or even an agent, there are a lot of very important um, details when it involves title, encumbrances, and then water rights and mineral rights that
Mhm.
I think everyone should pay attention to. Um, but it came naturally, right, from the
Yeah.
background, and I think also spending some marketing to those particular individuals in that space,
Mhm,
whether it is a developer or someone looking to buy a ranch or sell a ranch is important as well, because it's not just going to pop up, right? You've got to go out there and create it. Either we're making cold calls to potential sellers
Mhm.
on their 100-acre, 200, 2,000-acre ranches to try and list and sell them, or that we have a buyer that might be interested, or networking within that industry. I naturally came from the rodeo and show cattle industry,
Right.
so I knew a lot of people in that aspect,
Mhm.
and I would follow up with them. Make the phone call. Hey, Jimmy, have you ever thought about selling? This area is transitioning to more commercial. We can probably get a different price than your average price per acre. For ranching. Um, and so all of those play hand in hand, but we definitely need to know the basics, the foundation, right before we start uh, in that field.
Love it. Adam, I'm taking a pretty big leap forward, but I'm curious about something. Uh, how many people between the Adam Olsen team, the commercial team, the global, how many people are part of your organization now?
Yeah, so we have roughly about 18 staff members
Mhm.
between full time in the office and then a handful of VAs on the back end.
Right.
The VAs help with simple tasks, um, nothing that has to do particularly with our clients aside from graphics and
Mhm.
things along those lines. We like to have staff inside the office that are dealing right with our clients and everyday workload.
Right.
And then agents, we have roughly about 45 agents
Mhm.
between Adam Olsen team and commercial professionals.
Mhm.
We only have about six on the commercial professional side that do commercial only. The rest are on the residential and land side.
Mhm.
To give you a quick breakdown.
Thank you. I asked that because my thought is when you said at the beginning, "Hey, we take the business as we can get it in the beginning," right? And understandably so.
Right,
That anybody would treat that as smart business.
for
But
sure.
now that you've got this number of people, 18 full-time in the office, VAs, some on the commercial, so we're looking at how many people would be actively a part of your team again?
Roughly 18 staff members and then 45 agents.
Thank
So
you. Great. So you're
60.
in the 60s, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, so now as you are seeking individuals and or teams and or however that goes, what are you looking for? What has changed in terms of your field of vision, in terms of what attracts you?
Yeah, so we, just like myself, we don't care about college or any schooling in that sense. And I
Right.
hate to say that. Kudos to those of you that have done it and been successful.
Mhm.
And it's not that we don't look for that, but it doesn't have any weight or bearing on whether we hire you or we don't.
Mhm.
It's definitely a pro, right? If you do have some college experience, depending on what that experience is, but it's not a requirement, right? In a sense, as like most positions or jobs. Most importantly, we're looking, at how someone's communicating,
Mm.
if they make eye contact, right,
Mhm.
in that interview process, why they're communicating. Do they shake your hand? Do they have simple manners?
Mhm.
And then, most importantly, street smart. I think that street smart and common sense is very in tune with any company. Someone that can really figure something out, whether they've been shown or told how to do it or not. Not that we just throw people to the wolves, but there are, instances, especially in the real estate industry, when you're dealing with different people, different walks of life, different opinions and thought process, and then more importantly, different types of transactions. Right? We could
Right.
have a $5,000 lot, an HOA subdivision,
Mhm.
all the way up to a 1,000-acre ranch, to a $200,000 home, to a $5 million home. And so that individual really has to be quick on their toes and think outside of the box.
Mhm.
And so, personally, when I'm doing the interviews, I'm looking for street smart. Does this person have snap? And are they quick to respond? Right? If you ask a question and the individuals and thinking around and looking around, you know it's not that they may not be street smart or have common sense, but they in that moment, definitely don't illustrate snap and ability to respond quickly.
I got you.
And there are several instances, even in on my side, where I say or I get stumped. Right, I've said it a few times on the call where I'm trying to think. So it is definitely human, but those are just some small items that we look at
Wow.
aside from your everyday interview process and questions. And then a lot of it has to do with experience. I think there are a lot of applications that we've received over the years, and it seems like every year or every 6 months they have a new job. That's
Mhm.
unfortunately likely someone we're not going to interview. As
Okay.
bad as it sounds, our experience with individuals that have been in the workforce for 5, 10, 15 years, and every year, every 6 months they have a new job, and they've worked 20 places over the course of 10 years. um, Unfortunately, that's probably not someone that we want. It illustrates that they are not, stable, and stable is probably not the best word. Not meaning stable in their life, but they're not stable in their job, right?
Right.
They're not staying at a particular place for longevity, and so especially on a small business like us, it takes weeks, sometimes months, to get someone up to speed. You know, on the real estate side, especially if they have no experience. And we don't want to spend 3, 4, 5 months training and helping to get John to a place to be our transaction coordinator, and then them, decide they're going to go work for Johnny because
Fail.
Johnny offered them 50
Yeah.
cents more.
Yep.
So those are just a few of the items that we
Mhm.
look at in our interview process. Um, on the agent side, very similar. Do they have snap, street smart, and
Mhm.
common sense? And then it's a huge benefit if they have some type of sales background. Maybe they worked at a clothing store, or oil and gas sales. Any type of sales is a huge pro in that sense, as well as servers. I think servers and teachers uh, typically transition very well into a sales role because they come from a world of providing value
And
and and
service.
uh, and teaching people.
Mhm.
Servers come from a background of serving individuals, being kind when people are being rude,
Mhm.
and being responsive. And so there have been many times where I've gone to restaurants and we have a fantastic server, someone who's very attentive, always filling up the water, and you can see that individual in the restaurant, especially a very busy one. I mean, they're all over the place and they're taking care of 4 or 5 tables. They're always on it. Um, and a lot of times I'll ask them, "Hey, have you ever thought about getting into real estate?"
Right.
And have that conversation. Give them our business card. I think we've had maybe one uh, in that instance that has come on the team, but I try and be mindful of those opportunities when I'm out and about in the community. So
Snap and they're on it. To me, just sound like such great inherent traits. What's it like for you now? Just because I'm really interested in, and I didn't want, oh, two questions really. And one of them goes back to you've identified it earlier. You were talking about the interview process and being and maybe slow to respond. But then you had talked about before we went live in regards to, and I saw it more as decision making than just speaking, but it was speed to give it to me again.
speed of implementation.
That well, I
Yes,
was relatively
100%.
close. Let's say speed to process, but
Yes,
speed of
same deal.
implementation.
So
Talk to me about that. Why that matters so much to you?
it matters tremendously. With our agents, we always say speed to lead, right? If John calls in about a specific property and he
Right.
gets a call back in the next 5 to 10 minutes,
Mhm.
John is ecstatic. He realizes that we're on the ball. We respond quickly. And
Mhm.
if John has a property that he's looking to sell, his first thought is, "Wow, I inquired, and Billy from the company called me within 5 minutes." Like,
Mhm.
where do you see that? You don't see it. It unfortunately, in this day and age, you call into a company, you get a recording, and it takes weeks, days,
Yeah.
sometimes months to get things fixed or corrected,
Mhm.
or to even get a response. And so on that side, speed to lead. I think for business owners and entrepreneurs, speed of implementation.
Mhm.
You know, you can have ideas and thoughts and changes to benefit your company, your bottom line, increase revenue, to help your staff or your sales team. But without speed of implementation, nothing else matters, right? The idea goes nowhere.
Okay.
And so, it is immensely important that when we come up with these changes or these new systems, that we roll them out as fast as possible. Obviously, we want to make sure that the foundation is set. We don't want to jump uh, to
The old
to a
cliche, jump the
conclusion.
gun. Yeah.
Yeah, we don't want to, implement something that is not ready to be implemented. So
Mhm.
you do have to be careful there. But I think there's a lot of times where business owners, and I've even found myself in this trap where, you come up with an idea and you get busy with these other items and personal things come up, and then 2 weeks go by and nothing's happened, right? We haven't moved that needle forward. And
Mhm.
so speed of implementation is incredibly important, just as much as if you run a sales team. Speed to lead is just as
Speed
important,
to lead.
making sure that
Yeah.
we're getting those answers out, we're
Mhm.
providing values to our customer base. And even as simple as uh, an Amazon type store or clothing store,
Right.
you know, confirming that that order was placed and when it's going to be shipped. And a lot of them are set on auto emails, but there are some instances where you really don't get any updates, and then voila, it just shows up. So I think, providing an experience for your consumer, for your client, that is second to none,
Mhm.
is incredible, in the sense of your bottom line and increasing revenues and more transactions. But we don't do either one of those without speed to lead and speed of implementation.
Is speed to lead I'm sorry, I slurred that. Is speed to lead and speed of implementation, are they teachable traits in your mind? Or is it you got it or you don't?
They can be. I think that some can be taught. It's a scenario where I think back when I first got my license at
Yeah.
18 and I closed my first transaction,
Mhm.
and I was like, wow, that was not as difficult um, as I thought it was. And wow, I made, this large check. I think it
Mhm.
was five or $7,000
Right.
at the time, which for an 18-year-old
Is
is
a
a lot
lot.
of money. I mean, I
Yeah.
came from working at Kroger as a bagger.
Mhm.
Let's be honest,
Yep.
where you're making a couple $100 a
Mhm.
month, and and so it was massive. And I think at that point is when a lot of it shifts. So, up front for a new agent, it might sound goofy, or they have their own, you know, inclination of what needs to happen. But the minute they get that one transaction, um, eh, it either flips or it doesn't.
Ah, okay.
Um, and so it can be taught,
Mhm.
but I think at the same token, the individual has to want it.
Mhm.
We find ourselves training individuals sometimes that don't want it. They think they want it. They talk the talk, but they're not willing to walk the walk. And you can sort through those individuals rather fast. Um, and something, in addition to, or to add to, speed of implementation. If
Mhm.
you know that you made the wrong hire, take care of it. Don't
Mm.
let it linger out, right, for 2 or
Mhm.
3 months. And we've had that issue before personally, with our companies, where we hired someone, they're not quite working out, but we don't have someone to replace them, so they just stay there for 3 or 4 months until we're able to find something else. And although, yes, we do need someone to fill that role, I think personally it's better just to cut the cancer then.
Okay.
And if it takes you another 2 or 3 months to find someone, that's fine.
Mhm.
um, but in a sense, if we take care of the problem, then typically we're going to work a lot harder and faster to fill that role,
Got it.
versus it dragging out for 3 or 4 months. And so it all kind of goes hand in hand, and you can take, you know, that speed of implementation or
Yeah.
speed to lead
Yep.
concept, and transition it to
Mhm.
any part of your business. And the same, thought applies, just maybe a different, angle, right, of that thought.
So, with knowing what you know now and having a solid, to say the least, solid blueprint in regards to the way that you do business. What are you seeing in regards to, at this point, things shift all the time, and that sense of you don't know what you don't know. But in terms of whether it is the Texas landscape, North Houston landscape, whether it is the global, as you're handling significant investment opportunities, South Africa, Costa Rica, and beyond, what are some things that are? I'll ask it this way: two-part question, but a big one to me. What's something that excites you about that, and what's something that concerns you right now in regards to the direction overall that we're headed?
In the real estate market
Yeah, business,
specific or AI?
from conducting business. And by the way, AI can certainly be a part, and probably should be a part of the answer.
Yeah,
Not that I'm giving away the answer, but I mean, obviously, that is.
right.
I think we're far beyond the is AI important, and I'm certainly certain that we're way past the point of is social media useful. But now it's, as everything changes at this point, what excites you and what intimidates you?
I think what excites me is being able to utilize those tools to get back time. I use
Mhm.
ChatGPT and Claude to
Yep.
help analyze financials, to even help with responding to long emails. I mean, you think
Mhm.
about it, you type out a paragraph, two paragraph, three paragraph email, it takes you a little bit of time to think, to curate that, to
Right.
read over it, rather than, typing it out, uploading it into ChatGPT,
Mhm.
having it reorganize it, make it grammatically correct and
Mhm.
correct, right? Maybe the tone or the way that you're saying it. And so for me, I use it to try and get back my time to accomplish
Excellent.
more.
Okay.
I also utilize a software called Lindy that connects with my email,
Mm.
and it'll put in email drafts, type them out, following up on everything really, stuff that I've emailed my staff, maybe other agents that I've asked questions
Mhm.
on specific properties from. When I don't get a response, or maybe a week or 2 weeks goes by, and so it's helpful in that instance. I think also AI can be a con depending on the industry.
Sure.
There are some unfortunate truths that it will replace some jobs
Mhm.
just as much as robots will. But I think for business owners and entrepreneurs, being able to utilize tools to get more accomplished, more done, and to shorten, the time that's involved with each particular task. Sorry, tripping
No,
on the
I got
words
you.
there, is important. And there are those individuals out there that don't want to change with time, or they don't want to implement these items, but
Mhm.
you're going to get left behind. You
Yeah.
know, uh, I was talking with my website company roughly a month ago about trying to get AI integrated with our website, to where you, John, could go on our website and ask it questions about a
Mhm.
specific property or a specific area, and you get the localized information on that listing or property just spit out. Fast forward to roughly about 2 weeks ago, homes.com has done just that with their website. I knew that the large portals, realtor.com, Zillow, homes.com, were going to move towards this model of incorporating more AI with their websites,
Right.
to where, kind of like the chat bot right at the bottom
Oh.
where you ask it questions, but this is more intuitive. You're getting more data and information.
Mhm.
And so really trying to evolve in those instances, and more importantly, you know, ruling that out to your team.
Mhm.
I've had classes with my staff and my team to help them with how I use AI in my
Mhm.
everyday business, analyze financials and documents and the rest.
Mhm.
Um, a perfect example of that is I have a question that asks, or I have a client that asked me a question on an HOA document
Right.
or an HOA rule, and that document's 75 pages. You know, 5 years ago, I would have to go through each of those pages
Mhm.
to find where that rule is. Now I can upload data into ChatGPT, ask it the same question, have the answer to that client in 5 minutes rather than it taking me 20, 30 minutes, potentially an hour to review those documents and find where it is. So there are multiple instances where you can utilize it to your benefit. I think the
Mhm.
scary part is replacing some jobs. For business owners and entrepreneurs, that's not necessarily the end of the world, but
Right.
for our workforce as a whole, in our country, it is a concern. Um, I think that there are some concerns when it comes to the real estate market and property values, and where do we go from here compared to the last 30 or 40 years historically. Typically, every 10 to 15, 20 years we have some sort of a correction,
Yeah.
and we're going on quite a long time
Mhm.
with no correction, and a lot more inflation than we've
Mhm.
seen in those 2, 3, 4, 5 year or 5 decades prior.
Right.
You look at the issues that we had in 2001 and 2008. You know, yes, in a sense, we could have seen those coming, but also prior to those, we didn't see the immense growth in property value like we did during COVID. Where
Mhm.
prices nearly doubled. Yeah, we saw some growth prior to 2008 and 2007. I don't know the exact percentages, but it wasn't 100%. And in some cases, across the country, 50, 60, 70%. And so, that is concerning to me to see where we go from here. Obviously, they are replacing the Fed chair um, uh, in the next couple of days, from what I've been told and read through multiple releases. I
Mhm.
believe it's May 15th. So it'll be interesting to see what rolls out then as well. But there are always disruptions in all of our marketplaces, whether it's social media, AI, whether it's websites, and so on. And I think your smart leaders, your smart business owners, and entrepreneurs are trying to stay in front of those.
Great.
And if you're not staying in front of those, unfortunately, you are going to fall behind.
Mhm.
And regardless of your opinion or your belief on it, I have some staff members that don't necessarily believe in AI, but you've got to put that aside.
Mhm.
We live in 2026, and unfortunately, if we don't keep up with what's going on in our marketplace, and more importantly across the globe, we are going to fall behind as
Yep.
business owners, as entrepreneurs, as leaders.
Mhm.
And it goes back to asking those same questions, right, that we talked about earlier. How can I incorporate this into my business?
Mhm.
What can I utilize this for? Is there Are there low level tasks that my staff are doing that AI could help
Yeah.
them with, or take it off their plate so that they can go and do higher level
Mhm.
tasks, or maybe add more to that individual's plate because we can remove some of it by utilizing AI.
Mhm.
And those are the benefits, and those are the questions, right, that any business owner should be asking.
So, with all of that at this point, if you are I'm there was two questions I was going to end with, but I'm going to end with this one because to me, it's I would like to focus on the building the business part. If you are using Snap and you're responding quickly in general, but building businesses remains a significant risk. Uh, and whether it is building a retail business or a real estate business or an entrepreneurial business, what would you say would be the three must do's in regards to getting yourself established when everyone allegedly is in real estate and everyone allegedly is an entrepreneur? And so, isn't everything covered? What would be, you say, I said three, two or three things that you think you could coach somebody to say, hey, here are ways that you can accelerate by building a business?
I think it's being disruptive, and
Okay.
disruptive can be good or a negative. But I've always told and this is can be a bad way to look at it too,
Hmm.
but whether it's good press or bad press, they're still talking about you.
Yeah.
And so early on in the industry, I put up some billboards that you know other real estate professionals that have been doing it 20, 30 years, 15
Hmm.
years weren't really thrilled about. And matter of fact, we joke about it to this day. um, but at the time, they weren't thrilled, and I was not a very liked individual among some other agents and brokers that have been in the business a long time. Here's this kid coming in, and he's doing all these sales and transactions and hiring these people. And who is he, and who does he think he is, right? And so what we did is we put up billboards. Um, and one of them was kind of a little cartoon guy with two six shooters, and he's sitting there, and it said the new kid on the block, right? We had another one where it was a gentleman sleeping under a tree, and it said, "How hard is your agent or broker working for you?" And so they're a little edgy, right? But I think it's getting attention to what you're doing, and then sharing your success stories. 12 years ago when we first got into business, I really adapted to social media and online marketing. And at the time, there weren't very many agents that were doing full HD videos of their properties.
Right.
Fast forward to today, you see 100 of them a day.
You have to do it now.
You
You'd
have to
be
do it now.
crazy to not do it.
You have to do it. And so back then, there really wasn't many that did. And I remember some top agents in the office. One of them is a very good friend, Ivan Arona. He's a great guy and a great mentor over the years, and helped me tremendously. But I remember him coming to me saying, "Hey, what are you doing, to get all these deals?" And I told him social media. And he's like, "Man, I see your stuff and I think it's great, but I just feel like I'm bragging on myself." And in a sense, you are, right? So if I don't tell John who I am and
Mhm.
what I've done and how successful I am, he has no clue. And so if we're not sharing those success stories
Mhm.
and what we're doing on a daily basis and how we're providing value in our clients' lives, and the developments or the projects that we've been able to complete or help people with, no one knows about it,
Mhm.
because no one else is going to go do that for you. And so, early on, we would do video tour walkthroughs. I would, you know, obviously run ads on our listings, and I would run ads on our closed transactions, as well as reviews that we got for clients.
Right.
But taking it a step further, we also did interviews with local businesses in our marketplace to try and elevate them. And the reason behind that, John, is, you know, if people don't know who I am, but they know who, you know, Big E's is, which is a
Mhm.
local restaurant
Right.
in my area, and they love to eat at Big E's, and they love the owner, Eric, they're going to like, comment, and share that video.
Mhm.
So we would go and interview, that business owner, showcase their business, and then run ads on Facebook.
Mhm.
And so it helped them and it helped us. So we tried to be the digital mayor of the town, in a sense.
Mhm.
And then also, in addition to, we also did client testimonial videos. So we've had some incredible success stories over the years. One of which was a lady named Linda. We sold her building. It had been on the market 6 years, six different brokers.
Mhm.
We took over and we sold it within 4 months of being on the market, which is an incredible story. And she was more than willing to shoot a video. We had our photographer go out and shoot it. It was a professionally done
Right.
video, and those items work.
Mhm.
It provides a real life story of an individual that saw success with us, and we put that out to the marketplace. Again, if we don't tell the public who we are and what we do and how we can help them,
Mhm.
they have no clue. And if we're not active in our communities, right, and really providing value, they have no clue. And so, let's say your industry is not community based. Let's say it's oil and gas based. We can replicate that same model with oil and gas businesses.
Right.
We take the VP of ABC Oil and Gas Company, and how did we help you fulfill your order? You know, how do we help drive your bottom line? Because we, produced 7,000 caps in the matter of 6 months, whereas the other companies would have taken 12. And we'd showcase that. We take that and produce it or showcase it to the other individuals or potential buyers in our marketplace. And so regardless of your background or your industry, these same models can be tweaked and utilized in any business.
I think the exciting part, the disruptive part, as you said, the speed of implementation, and I'll end the episode with something someone else said, but you really are saying it well, which is this is somebody who is in voice production and casts a lot of roles in animation and what have you. And he literally said during a class to a group of us, he said, hey, folks, it's not who you know, it's who knows you. So if you are not being disruptive, or as you said, not utilizing or optimizing the sense of telling people who you are, what you do, why you matter, and why you're different, then no one's going to figure it out for you. So I really appreciate the expertise, man. Now, I'm following you on LinkedIn and Instagram and socials, and I'm happy to have the link to your website as well. What would you say is the first place somebody should check in order to learn more about you?
Yeah, definitely Instagram, Adam S. Olsen, or the Adam Olsen team Instagram, either one, as well as the Commercial Professionals Instagram.
Yep. Great. Love it. They will be, folks, they'll all be in the links. Individual, group, commercial will all be there, and we'll make certain of that, and we'll have Adam's website there as well, too. Awesome. Adam Olsen, thanks so much for showing up for me today, man. We learned a ton, and I think the number one thing for me is the constant reminder is you learn from anyone at any age, or shame on you. And so thank you for this. Has absolutely been great, and I appreciate you.
Same here. It's a pleasure, John. Thanks for having me on. I hope that everyone had some nuggets that they could take from this, and really appreciate the time on your show.
100%. Folks, you've just heard another episode of Your Message Received. Keep liking, watching, sharing, subscribing, and we'll keep coming back with more. John Duffin here with Duffin Media. Have a great rest of the day, all. Be well, and we'll talk soon. Bye.
And now, making its way across the finish line, Your Message Received has been a production of Duffin Media.